Hello, everyone. Welcome to City Lights Live, the virtual extension of the City Lights events calendar. I'm your host, Peter Maravellis. And tonight we welcome to our virtual halls, Angela Hume, discussing her new book titled Deep Care, the Radical Activist Who Provided Abortions, Defied the Law, and Fought to Keep Clinics Open. It's published by our friends over at AK Press. Deep Care is the story of the radical feminist networks who have worked outside of the law to defend abortion. Starting in the 1970s, small groups of feminist activists met regularly to study anatomy, to practice pelvic exams on each other, to learn how to safely perform abortion procedures. This self-help movement grew into a robust national and international collaboration of activists determined to ensure access to reproductive health care. Deep Care follows the generations of activists and health workers as they worked underground and above ground to help provide health care to women. As is customary at the outset of each event, I would like to acknowledge that we are beaming to you from the unceded ancestral homelands of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples. We'd like to take this moment to offer respect to those who have come before us as stewards of the land. All along the San Francisco Peninsula, over a dozen dialects were spoken of the language, so we pay our homage. Angela Hume is a feminist historian, critic, and poet. She is the author of 2 poetry books, Interventions for Women and A Middle Time, and is the co-editor of the book Eco-Poetics, Essays in the Field. She teaches writing at the University of California in Berkeley. She's going to be joined tonight by 2 special guests who are activists in the field. We are happy to have with us Brenda Cummings and Jessica Pickney. Please join us now in welcoming Angela Hume and our guests. Welcome to City Lights.
Hey, everybody. It's so nice to see some of you in the Zoom room who I haven't seen in a minute. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Really, really appreciate you. So thank you so much, Peter, for the introduction and for hosting us tonight. It's such an honor to be hosted by City Lights, a longstanding Bay Area literary institution. I am going to be reading from my book a little bit tonight and then having some conversation with, as Peter mentioned, Brenda Cummings and Jessica Pickney, who I'll introduce in just a moment. I wanted to let you know that this evening's event spotlights Access Reproductive Justice, which is California's statewide practical support network and abortion and reproductive health care fund. Access is celebrating its 30th year, and Access removes barriers and builds the power of Californians to achieve reproductive justice. City Lights is kindly offering this event free to all of you, to the public, and so we want to just invite you to consider supporting Access with a donation tonight, and also to consider picking up a copy of Deep Care from City Lights to support this beloved bookstore and literary institution. So you'll find helpful links in the chat. I want to just briefly introduce Jessica and Brenda, once again, who we have the total privilege of hosting as well tonight. Jessica Pickney is the executive director of Access Reproductive Justice, and she previously served as vice president of government affairs at In Our Own Voice, National Black Women's Reproductive Justice Agenda, a partnership of 8 Black women's reproductive justice organizations. She is a native Californian who cares deeply about lifting up the voices of community in the work to achieve reproductive justice. So welcome, Jessica. And I also want to introduce Brenda Cummings, who grew up in rural Maine, graduated high school 4 months pregnant, and then moved to the Bay Area in 1985 with her son, Jonathan, after they both attended Antioch College. Brenda became involved in the Bay Area Coalition for Our Reproductive Rights, which I'll tell you more about this evening, coordinated clinic escorts in San Francisco, and in 1993, co-founded with Christina Smith what is now Access Reproductive Justice. So we're going to have the historical perspective and the contemporary perspective this evening. Brenda returned to Maine in the year 2000 and is now the assessor for the city of Bath, Maine. So welcome once again, Jessica and Brenda. All right, so I'm very excited to share from my book, Deep Care, the Radical Activists Who Provided Abortions, Defied the Law, and Fought to Keep Clinics Open, which is a historical book that is grounded in primary source materials and research that I did in libraries and also just in people's homes. I spent time in people's personal archives to write this book. And I also did oral history interviews with like close to 50 people, and a few dozen of them ended up in the book. So it's semi-academic, but not truly academic. It was published by AK Press just a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to, with no further ado, just read a couple of sections from the introductory sections of the book, just to give you a sense of like what the book is about. And then I'm going to read a scene from the middle of the book that actually narrativizes a Bay Area Coalition for Reproductive Rights training video, and that I think will kind of give you a glimpse into what clinic defense and clinic escorting looked like for activists in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Okay. This is from the very beginning of the book. This is a story about revolutionary deep care, community care that transforms and empowers us from the inside out through practice and over time. It's the story of an independent abortion clinic, an abortion underground or secretive network, and a clinic defense coalition that were active during some of the years that abortion was legal in all 50 United States. The clinic practiced feminist sexual, reproductive, and abortion healthcare and taught people about body sovereignty, or how to have power in your body and in your life. The underground self-help movement took from the clinic supplies and knowledge about how to provide abortions and seeded them throughout the community. The Clinic Defense Coalition fought to keep the clinic open and defend the community against anti-abortion extremists. I think of them, the clinic, the underground, and the coalition, as a single radical abortion defense movement history, and the lessons this history has to offer couldn't be more urgent today. This next short section is from the introduction, just provides a little overview of the scope of the book. It's called Learn, Defy, Fight. Deep Care braids 3 story threads. A first thread is about the Oakland Feminist Women's Health Center, or Women's Choice Clinic, for many years part of a network called the Federation of Feminist Women's Health Centers, and later renamed West Coast Feminist Health Project and Women's Choice. This thread chronicles moments in the clinic's near 40-year struggle to keep its doors open and provide feminist abortion and sexual health care. In this thread, I track and theorize the influences of gay women's liberation, the Black Panther Party, and a longer tradition of Black women's health activism and self-help healthcare on clinic politics and philosophies of abortion counseling and abortion work. I tell stories about how this specific clinic transformed how people imagined reproductive health care. How, for example, it started the first sperm bank in the country to serve single women and lesbians, as well as the first to offer a donor identity release option. And how the clinic played a critical role in helping to get the abortion pill mifepristone approved in the United States. Throughout this first thread, I explore the participatory clinic model of small group care that distinguished women's choice from mainstream providers. The participatory clinic posited that sexual health care must be a non-hierarchical shared undertaking. A second story thread historicizes the underground gynecological and abortion self-help movement in California's Bay Area. The simple fact that abortion has been practiced intentionally, carefully, holistically, and near constantly by skilled but unlicensed lay people outside of the medical institution, even during years that Rose stood, has not been adequately grasped or theorized. In this thread, I offer stories and analysis of this movement. Drawing on interviews with underground self-helpers, I show how these activists took abortion care into their own hands, learning, practicing, and teaching manual suction abortion beyond the walls of the clinic. The work abortion self-helpers did, both inside and outside of clinics, was complementary and revolutionary. Underground self-help groups in the Bay Area relied on health workers at Women's Choice for access to medical knowledge and supplies. Critically, this thread reveals how these activists, along with health workers at a licensed clinic, together transferred restricted knowledge about gynecology and abortion to lay people. A third story thread chronicles Bay Area abortion defenders' central role in resisting the rise of the Christian rights militant anti-abortion campaigns. In the 1980s and 1990s, the Bay Area Coalition for Reproductive Rights, or BAYCOR, which included women's choice, along with the feminist group Radical Women, the feminist collective Women Against Imperialism, the anti-imperialist group Roots Against War, a loose-knit group of queer anti-fascists, labor organizers and trade unionists, and others, executed a creative, tactically sophisticated, and highly effective clinic defense movement with nationwide reach. Bay Area abortion defenders also trained and led volunteers in clinic escorting over many decades. In my conclusion, I offer some final stories and reflections that respond to a question. What survival lessons do gynecological and abortion self-help and clinic defense offer us today when reproductive justice and body sovereignty are less a legal reality in the United States than they were a half-century ago? As I will show, self-helpers and clinic defenders made a world in which intimate knowing of self and of community was both possible and revolutionary. They did so by learning to provide abortions themselves, defying the law when necessary, and fighting to keep clinics open. As longtime director of Women's Choice Clinic, Lindsay Comey, put it to me, we did it before and we'll do it again. All right, I'm going to read for a few more minutes from the middle of the book. The chapter is called The First Line of Defense. Your first line of defense is self-defense. And this chapter focuses on clinic defense in the San Francisco Bay Area, specifically the work of the Bay Area Coalition Against Operation Rescue, which then renamed itself the Bay Area Coalition for Our Reproductive Rights. And I know we have at least a couple other people in the room who were involved with this coalition, and I'm hoping that we can have some lively conversation about it after I finish reading. This section's called The Clinic is Open. It was hot in Albuquerque in June. A standing fan purred on me as I rummaged around in Cass McMahon's BAYCOR archive. I picked up a VHS tape in a hot pink slipcase. Black cover text in a punky font read, "We don't write letters, we're BAYCOR." An original Agnes and Joe Sampson production, those are also clinic defenders, released in 1989, the training video opens with Tracy Chapman's Talking About a Revolution. BAYCOR's logo flashes on the screen in grainy purple, and a clinic defender named Marianne Jensen's husky voice provides the voiceover. The Bay Area Coalition Against Operation Rescue is a coalition of women and men committed to defense of our reproductive rights, she says. We defend local abortion clinics against attempted blockades and harassment by Operation Rescue. This video shows techniques for escorting clinics past Operation Rescue pickets and methods for successful clinic defense. BAYCOR would distribute the video to activists around the Bay Area and in other cities too, like Boston, New York, and Milwaukee. The training videos were an important tool for spreading radical clinic defense, Cass explained. At that time, we were the primary organized clinic defense force. The video cuts to footage of a defense at Pregnancy Consultation Center. The camera zooms in close to capture the faces of antis, or anti-abortion demonstrators, mostly white men. Marianne explains, Operation Rescue comes to clinics to harass women. We put ourselves between women and Operation Rescue sidewalk counselors. Part of escorting includes verbal and sometimes physical confrontation with OR, and also more subtle and creative techniques for diverting their attention from clients. The next shot shows Cass in an orange vest with a BAYCOR bandana tied around her head, diverting an anti's attention. She raises her voice and shakes her finger at the anti. Women are responsible beings who make decisions based on things in their life that you'd have nothing to do with, she says. Then the video cuts to a young white woman sitting in the grass in front of PCC on the cold early morning of the defense, explaining clinic escorting and clinic defense to a group of new escorts and defenders. She's extremely well-spoken. She looks directly at her audience and often nods and smiles warmly during pauses for emphasis. Her mullet resembles Cass's, and she wears her BAYCOR bandana around her neck. Her name is Brenda Cummings. Brenda runs it down for the group. I have something to share with you, but I am trying to figure out how to share my screen. Let's see. Peter, it's saying host disabled participant screen sharing.
The roles of things that will happen other than counter demonstrating beside that there will be someone at the door, there should be now or will be before, checking people in, checking clients in, that's a given. There are people in each stairway, generally being an orange vest, being officially with the clinic, and possibly functioning, depending on what's happening, as people who will help either counter OR, like focus on keeping OR away from a client, or will focus on going up to a client saying, people in the orange vests are with the clinic, we can help you into the clinic, you know. So they have a sort of mixed function. People on the stairways, they can do anything, but mostly they're just kind of standing around being, this is our property line, you can't come up here, stay away. The other two roles are OR dogging and what I just described, sort of direct client escorting. I know it sounds like you all find it client escorting, but actually it's the most important, but it's a very small job in that only one, we don't want everybody going on to the client at once. We want to just have one person explaining who we are, getting the client and whoever is with her to identify that there are people here who can help them in and that they don't have to be scared. Okay. So the OR doggers are people who, most of the picketers, some of the picketers will stay down here. Many of them will walk along Octavia Street because that's where most of the clients come in. The people who walk along Octavia Street are focused on directly harassing, directly going up to clients. Our job is to try to eliminate that or keep the ORs focused on us and not on them as much as possible. So as OR doggers, you'll, for the most part, be walking around all morning with an OR. Probably, and I'll try to put 2 to 1 kind of thing, depending on how the ORs end up grouping themselves, whether they end up all walking together or whether they walk separately. If that OR tries to attack the client, your job will be to be physically in between that client and the OR. You'll have.
The video then takes us to an organizing meeting. One of the things we're trying to do is establish that we control the situation, Brenda tells the group. I work as an escort at PCC. Now we no longer have to get into shoving matches with OR because they've learned the boundaries. So we very rarely get into a situation where we have to shove them. We're defining the situation. In some sense, we might be risking arrest. We have to decide for ourselves and as a group whether it's worth it. I think controlling the situation is the most important thing. The video explains that Bay Corps makes a specific plan in advance for each clinic on a hit day. They identify which entrances are most defendable and where defenders should be placed to hold the doors. The key to a successful clinic defense is getting there first, Brenda adds. Behind her is Cass, leaning in with her forearms on her knees. Keeping the door and corridor open is critical. If there isn't a corridor through the crowd, Brenda says, defenders can force one using a wedge formation. The video cuts to footage from a defense where police are trying to stop both antis and defenders from getting near a clinic's door. Together, we pushed past police and OR to get clients to the clinic safely, Marianne explains in voiceover. Defenders and clients suddenly break into a run for the door. Run, run, Brenda yells, waving for people to follow her. There is a tangle of defenders, ORs, and police, with police grabbing and yanking people away from the doors. By early 1989, Bay Corps could count on as many as 1,000 clinic defenders to show up when they put out the call. They published a monthly newsletter and sent out mailings to help keep people engaged. Marianne explains in the training video, Bay Corps is a multi-issue organization that has worked in coalition with others to link up the issues between struggles for reproductive rights, lesbian and gay liberation, and an end to racism. We see the attack on abortion rights as only one part of the far right wing's agenda. The video shows Bay Corps on the offensive too, marching in the streets or in front of churches with creative props. In one scene, defenders carry a giant skeleton puppet wearing a Pope's hat. They march while holding up boards that side by side read Clinic Defense, Bay Corps. The training video begins to wrap up with a shot of defenders burning a paper-wrapped wire hanger and chanting, "Never again." Then Lucinda Williams's upbeat, passionate kisses comes on. The last 8 or so minutes of the tape contain B-roll overlaid with Public Enemy's Fight the Power. At one point, the camera captures clinic defenders marching defiantly down a street in the direction of a clinic with the giant sign that reads, "This clinic is open," and people cheer. And I have one more little clip to show you. Peter, I wonder if you could give me permission to share, please.
Thank you.
It's really short, but okay. Just wanted to give you that one more little glimpse of the training video. Thank you so much for your attention while I did that reading. And I want to now just turn to Brenda and Jessica and just invite a few comments. And, you know, Brenda, I would love to just hear from you a little bit about, you know, back in the late 1980s and early 1990s, when you started to, you know, along with others in BACOR, see the connections between the need for clinic defense and clinic escorting and a practical support network to help people access a clinic in the first place. You know, please just feel free to talk to us a little bit about, you know, that time and some of the pieces that you were putting together, and anything else about yourself that you think might just kind of understand your perspective and where you're coming from.
So I think, hi, everybody. I'm Brenda Cummings. I think that one of the things you said earlier really struck me. And one of the things about reading the book that has really struck me is the phrase you talked about, non-hierarchical shared undertaking. That was what we were hoping to create in Access. And that grew out of our experience doing clinic defense and clinic escorting. For me, it grew out of my own experiences as well. I spoke at Access's 10th anniversary, and I talked about kind of the people that Access was there to serve. And I described this teenager who didn't know how to get contraception and didn't know where to go, and certainly couldn't get there because it was too far away, didn't have a car. And then I described this young woman who needed an abortion and didn't have any money, didn't have any way to pay for it. And then I described this single mom who's trying to raise her kid and struggling with how to do that and how to manage in the world. And I said at that event, and all of those people were me. They were the Access's callers, but they were also stories from my life. Because I'd had the experience in clinic defense of realizing that there was no one who was going to do this for us. There was no, I mean, the police were not going to fix this problem. And not only did we have the right to stand up for ourselves, I felt if we could, we had the obligation to. You know, I could not have gotten through all of the parts of my life without a whole bunch of other people helping. I couldn't go to college without the fact that a whole bunch of people who I went to college with took care of Jonathan for free. I say we went to Antioch together because we did. I would never have been able to pay for an abortion if I hadn't had an abortion fund, in essence, that was able to help me. I learned that whole it takes a village thing before Hillary ever said it, you know? So I'd come out to California knowing that I was looking for something different in how we think of what it is to be a woman and what it is to be a single parent in terms of being alone and having all this weight of the world on your shoulders. I knew we had to be there for each other somehow. And as I went through the history, that time period where we're going, not only is this anti-abortion stuff, violence and activity happening, there's all these court decisions that are progressively making, increasingly limiting and increasingly expanding all of the things you can do to keep somebody else from making a decision for themselves. And I just felt like we had to resist. And that one way I could resist was to take back the ability to have this knowledge. And the thing about Access is that you could call Access and you didn't have to be qualified. You didn't have to meet some criteria in order to get help. You didn't have to be eligible for services. You just had to call. That was really powerful. We didn't have clients or patients. We had people we worked with women we worked with. The woman we're working with to get her, to get to this clinic. That was a really important part of our beliefs about what we were doing and my certainly passion for doing it. I think I started probably with a sense of sort of wanting to give back some of the help that I'd gotten. And I said that to a lot of people I, work with and at Access, who would thank me for helping, thank me for giving them a ride. And I'd be like, somebody gave me a ride once and I'm really, happy to be able to give one to you. But I think that over time, and this goes to how Access has changed and grown since I left, and it really is a segue to Jessica talking. I think that sort of simplistic perspective on we who started Access had relative privilege. We were white women. Who had a certain amount of privilege. Whatever struggles I had myself. And so that early sort of, I'm giving back became a deeper and a much deeper understanding of the importance of empowerment and people speaking and acting for themselves, women speaking and acting for ourselves, each of us in our own ways. And that's what Access to Reproductive Justice has grown into. And I'm incredibly honored to have been a part of it.
Thank you so much, Brenda. I already have more questions that I want to ask you, but I think we should maybe invite Jessica to just share a few words, in response to Brenda. Please tell us a little, just briefly, what is Access Reproductive Justice up to today? People in the audience may or may not be familiar with the work that abortion funds do and that practical support volunteer networks do. And also feel free just to share anything about yourself that will just help us understand your perspective.
Sure. I mean, I think I have to start by just, well, hello, good evening. And I just have to start by saying how incredibly honored and excited I am to be able to be having this conversation with both of you who are so key and important to access and to the role that access plays throughout the state and community. And I think, you know, and listening to Brenda's words, which literally brought tears to my it's just, I'm so moved. I was thinking about, you know, how far we have come as an organization in the past 30 years, and also how that mission and vision that Brenda was naming around supporting folks and you know, providing a safe space for people to assert their own bodily autonomy and decision making is still so true and core to the work that we do every day. You know, we've definitely lost some of our grassroots feel in some ways as we've grown as an organization, have, you know, paid staff and a large budget and 501c3 status and all of those things. But, you know, every single member of Access's team has been impacted in some way, shape, or form by the work that we have done. Almost everyone who works on our health line has utilized our health line. And as Brenda named, you know, there are no requirements. If you call and you say you need help, we help. I have in the last year become a parent, and every day I say it takes a village. And yeah, and that's really so true of the work that we do at Access as well. You know, we have systemized a lot of how we provide practical support and abortion funding to folks, but in a lot of ways, it is still, we come together as a group of people, we problem solve, and we really are listening to individuals' experiences and the barriers that they're naming and experiencing, and problem solving as a village to ensure that they can access the care that they need and that they want. And so it's been a deep honor to be able to shepherd this organization in this phase of its existence. And I always love to share about our founding and how Brenda and Christina, you know, saw a need in the community as clinic escorts, saw that it was not just the barriers to accessing the abortion itself, but even getting to the clinic, to, you know, having childcare for children that folks already had, or family care, you know, pulling the funds together, getting the ride. And now what we see is that even on a greater level, right? Because we know that there are barriers to accessing care in California. It's a huge state. People have to travel a great distance sometimes. Folks don't have access to the resources they need. They don't have the ride, whatever the case may be. But now we're also supporting an influx of folks who are coming from outside of California who have no access to abortion care whatsoever. And so it's been really humbling to be a safe space for folks beyond the state of California as well. And I think the final thing I'll say, which was really coming to mind a lot in listening to you, Brenda, was something that I have been saying in the lead up to the Dobbs decision and since. And that is that, you know, we are here filling the gap where governments have failed their people, where the governments have failed their communities. And, you know, we all at Access have been doing a ton of visioning this year as we reflect on the past 30 years and towards what's ahead. And we all very much share the end goal of not having to exist, because people have all of the support and access and care that they need in their communities, in their homes. And that, the village is kind of just part of how we all exist. And, we don't have to tap into these resources in such a logistically challenging environment and circumstance. But, I think a lot about the work that we're doing now, which is really to be a support system where other support systems have failed, and where systems have failed people. And so I was thinking a lot, Brenda, as you were naming, like cops weren't protecting people, right? Like, we're seeing states all across the country not protect their citizens, not ensure that they have basic healthcare. And so we really see our work
criminalizing them.
Right, and criminalizing them, absolutely. Yeah. And so we really see our work as community care, as mutual aid, and filling a gap that we shouldn't have to fill, but we will do our very damnedest to fill until we no longer have to.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica, so much for just kind of telling us about what Access is doing, and just the philosophy and community-centered ethos behind it. Yes, but so just to and I just want to encourage everyone to drop any questions in the chat for Brenda, for Jessica, for me, for all of us. It would just be great to have a little bit of dialogue with folks who are in the room. And I know there are folks in the room who, again, probably have some really interesting questions that they could ask, or provocations. I was just thinking, Brenda, again, this insight, nobody's going to do this for us, right? No one's going to do this for us. And additionally, you have to be there for each other somehow, right? And I wonder if you would want to maybe just tell us a little bit more about what that felt like in the context of organizing clinic defense for Bay Corps. What that, kind of, we're taking this into our own hands. Nobody else is going to do it, so we're going to do it. What did that look like, right? In the sort of context of the organizing and the defending, what did it look like when you were there for each other, right? And if there's any other clinic defenders in the room who want to jump in and contribute as well, please feel invited to do so.
So you write in the book about the first big Operation Rescue action that I was involved in at the Sunnyvale Clinic, where we were actually trying to do clinic defense. So we were there before the anti-abortion people were there, and we were standing in line, and we had our arms all linked together, and it was such a revolutionary, revealing, frightening, intense experience, because I'd never been in any kind of physical conflict like that before. And at some point, and these guys were just sort of coming at us, and it was this first wave of young men who were coming at us, and it's like they didn't even see us. They were just going through us, over us, and they didn't even see us. And and there were more of them than there were of us, as you write about. And so ultimately they kind of were able to blockade the door there. But in that transition moment, and this guy is coming at me, I kind of jump up in his face, and I'm like, you look at me. You look at me. I'm a person, you look at me. You see me. This is not about this imaginary baby that you have in your head. Look at me. You are hurting me. I'm a person right here in front of you. It was, okay, that probably reveals to everybody that I was a philosophy major because that existential feeling was so important to me. I was so angry that he was oblivious to me as a person. So the more we did clinic defense and the more successful we got at it, I mean, it was great to feel like we had the power to make a difference. And that came from our being able to be such a large group of people who were trusting each other and working together. It's funny because the other part of the book is about, you know, these self-help groups doing menstrual extraction, and that's a very small and intimate group, right? It has to be for, and that it sounds so different than this big group of political action, but it had some of the same kind of power, you know, in terms of making us, you know, realize and feel like we were responsible for this, and we could be responsible for this, and we could act. We didn't have to just take what was happening to us. And I think that that's carried through for in all kinds of ways in my life, certainly, and I suspect in all of our lives who are involved in that.
Brenda,
And it's one of the most important things any of us can learn. That we have that power. You were going to say something?
And I just remember in one of our interviews you said, and you were talking about gynecological self-help, and you were also talking about clinic defense, I believe, and you said something like self-help is where the power is, and it was just such a aside almost, but it was sort of this profound moment, and I wrote it into the book, you know, because I was just like, that's absolutely a central insight. It's where the power is.
It's an amazing thing to discover that we have the ability to keep the clinics open. We could do it. We didn't have to take no for an answer, you know?
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about how you were describing demanding the recognition of the antis, right? These sort of big dudes, right? Who like don't see you, right? You're oftentimes on the clinic defense line, you're like a woman or a pretty feminized person, right? Like there were a lot of queers who were involved in clinic defense and BACOR. A lot of lesbians, like the abortion defense movement in the Bay Area was very queer from the beginning, from the 1970s, right? And so it's interesting, like when you were speaking, I was thinking about other abortion defenders who also talked about the experience of like just feeling so much rage at not being seen, you know, and like just bringing that to the defense line and just demanding recognition, you know, of who you are and your queer body or your female or feminized body, you know. And then also that self-recognition that you were talking about, like this sort of realization and actualization of your autonomy learning gynecological self-help or learning how to do clinic defense, and so the way that the movement was really kind of profoundly about both demanding recognition from the other and also demanding recognition from yourself, and those are like really powerful things to just ask of the world. So I appreciate you articulating that. I like listening to you speak. I also love philosophy, and yeah, I think it's one reason that I'm so compelled by you, is you just have such a philosophical way of talking about your history. Yeah, Jessica, I just want to ask, like, what is it like as someone who's like very much deep in the struggle right now, and in the last however many years, like to sort of go back in time to the 80s and 90s and kind of hear some of these stories? Like, are you making any connections to the present moment and just sort of feelings and emotions that you and others who you work with experience on the daily?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's interesting because we have been doing so much reflection this year, and what's coming up for me is that so much has not changed, both politically, right, and also just in terms of what our work looks like and how we actualize it. And I think there's something really powerful in that abortion funds and practical support groups and organizations have existed for as long as we know, and have, there's a piece that I wrote a while back now about, as a Black woman, how offensive I was finding a lot of the language as Roe was falling around like the need for an underground railroad, because there's been a network of clinic defenders, of practical support folks, of abortion funds forever. And that work exists, and we don't need to recreate the wheel. We need to empower the folks who have the tools and resources at their fingertips. And so I'm just really reflecting a lot on some of that narrative that was coming out as Roe was falling around, folks posting very publicly, like on social media and places, like, I want to house you in my home, and like understanding the safety and security and the implications and like the care that so many individuals have spent so much time and energy to cultivate over decades, right? And so I'm just really appreciating the opportunity to reflect on where access started, and that it truly isn't that different from where we are. We are today, shouting from the rooftops that people deserve care and compassion and help,
Respect.
and respect, yeah, to achieve bodily autonomy, and that these issues are interconnected. I literally was just at a screening last night of Plan C, the documentary that is highlighting some of the work around self-managed abortion throughout the country. And there's some highlights in there as well around the interconnectivity and the way that providers who have been providing gender affirming care have really stepped up in this moment to dispense mifepristone and prostol, where abortion providers couldn't necessarily take that risk. So just thinking about, our freedoms and our autonomy are tied up in our shared struggles. And in some ways, I think that work has gotten maybe even more complicated in the last 30 years. And certainly far more politicized when we're really just talking about people's livelihoods and their human rights, which seems like it should be the least controversial.
Right.
Yeah,
I want to
thank you.
comment on,
Please.
I want to comment on the history that we came from. So we didn't come out of a vacuum. And you write about this when you write about the Feminist Women's Health Centers and Lindsay, especially, who is one of my heroes. But we were very aware of the stories of Jane, the group that worked underground in Chicago, ultimately providing abortions for women. In fact, our first computer was called Big Jane. That's what we called the hard drive. So it has been a long journey. And yeah, on the one hand, it's horrifying that it's still the same, right? Because we want to be further along. And we certainly never wanted to be in this position. But it's also a strong core to be building from.
Yeah,
because it's in us.
Absolutely. I always say that, the anti-abortion folks will always try to tear us down, and they may have minor successes, but it's so personal for all of us. And I always say my personal is my political is my professional. There's all of the lines are blurred all day. And that's really how it is for so many of us. We can't separate our personal experience, our lived experience, from that of what we're fighting for every day.
I sometimes have dreams, Jessica, that Access calls me because you have a case in Maine. So if you ever do, you can call me anytime.
Noted. It's not out of the realm of possibility, that's for sure.
I'm just appreciating what you're both saying about shared struggles and overlapping struggles and sibling movements and solidarities, and just also again, thinking about all the queer folks who were involved in queer liberation and queer nation and who were organizing with ACT UP, and borrowing tactics and modeling possibilities for tactics, right? Like between BACOR and some of the other groups, so just how there were so many queer folks in the mix, and people understood the intersection of struggles for reproductive justice, for abortion access, and the struggle to be seen and recognized as a person with AIDS, and to demand the care of the state and the community, and just like how people were so wrapped up in all of it, and we're seeing this today as well, as reproductive justice and trans liberation and trans health justice just are going to lengths to articulate the intersections of those movements and how powerful that is, so just appreciating the long history of just political savvy around those allied sibling struggles, reproductive justice and queer and trans health justice. Yeah. So thanks for those comments. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Well, it's already 7:00. I wonder if we have just anyone in the room who wants to ask a question or offer a comment or a response. Just, whatever you're thinking and feeling. It's a lot. We've brought a lot tonight, and Brenda and Jessica both shared really courageously and vulnerably. So just any audience comments or feedback, I want to welcome that.
Tibby says, I had an illegal abortion in 1963. I never wanted kids. I had endometriosis and very, very heavy and painful periods. In Paris in 1968, I was told to take the birth control pill daily, which stopped those periods. I didn't have a stroke until I was past 60, but it was worth it because I lived nearly 40 exciting, pain-free years. Let's see. Barb says, I taught self-help clinics in Oakland in the 1980s, and I know how powerful these experiences were for the women who participated. Let's see if we have anything else.
Yes, abortion defenders in the Bay Area practice gynecological self-help starting in the early 1970s with the movement's inception, and they did so on forward from there. They never stopped. And once again, gynecological and abortion self-help was group practice in which lay people learned about gynecology and abortion and learned to do things like examine cervixes, do pelvic exams, track fertility, identify possible STIs, yeast conditions, and also to perform manual suction procedures in the case of early pregnancy. So that's a whole nother piece of the book that we haven't gotten into tonight. But if lay healthcare movements are of interest to you, I think you'll find some of what you're interested in learning about in the book. Yeah, thanks Tibby and Barb for sharing. Rob asks, how should we use the stickers? I wonder, I'm guessing that, Rob, are you talking about Plan C stickers? Maybe? How should we use the stickers? Well, Plan C, just to go back to what Jessica was mentioning, plancpills.org is an information campaign online. It's a website where you can go to learn about how to obtain abortion pills by mail, legally or illegally. And at the Plan C Pills website, you can order stickers that contain information about the website or even a QR code to the website. And they'll send you stickers for free. You could give them a small donation. They'll send you stickers. I could share some stickers with you. Anyway, these are, the stickers contain life-saving information. And for friends in banned states, this is a lifeline potentially. And, one thing that abortion defenders are really trying to do right now is make the referral, right? Like help people get information about where to get more information, right? Like, what if you want to order your abortion pills by mail? How would you do that? What if you live in a banned state? So, how to use the stickers? Well, I would say, just like stick them everywhere, if you're traveling, especially to places that are hostile toward abortion and reproductive health care, bring some stickers in your pack and put them in public bathrooms and, at cafes and in gas stations and just wherever, leave some in a stack at the university, that kind of thing. Those are some ways that you can use the stickers. Yeah, but check out the Plan C Pills website if you haven't already. It's a really important referral resource that we should all be aware of and be able to tell our family and friends about. Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in the documentary is Francine, the founder of Plan C, in a university in Texas after they banned abortion, and she's literally like sneaking into bathrooms on campus to stick the stickers on the mirrors in the bathrooms, and she's like sitting on the toilet trying to make sure she puts it in a place where you can like see it while you're sitting. It's golden. They're good. Yes. We literally just stick them on like lampposts wherever we can. You never know when you're going to need to access medication abortion.
And there's going to be another screening of the documentary followed by a panel with Access, an organization called Teach, and Plan C, like on the 12th of December. So if you're in the area, it's at the New Parkway. I'm going to be there. It looks pretty good, that event. Yeah.
We find ourselves at the top of the hour. Are there any final comments that each of you has before we go? Brenda?
Well, yeah, Brenda or Jessica, any final words? Well, please go ahead, Brenda.
No, I don't. I think Jessica should.
No, I was just going to say, I'm really grateful for this conversation. I'm grateful for your book, Angela. It's just a joy. And it's just, I think this history is so important and still so relevant today and to the work that we're trying to do today. So thank you for your work. And I have a very special place in my heart for Brenda and Christina for the work that they did to bring access into existence, and incredibly grateful for folks for joining for this conversation.
Well, thanks for saying that, Jessica. Thank you so much for all of the work that you do. It's just amazing how much Access does. And it's like not surprising that an abortion fund like Access has its roots in this extremely badass sort of coalition of clinic defenders and escorts and practical support volunteers who were like really serious organizers. You know, I learned so much about organizing in the process of researching this book, just hearing from folks about the work that they did. So I just really appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much again, Peter, for hosting and facilitating, and to Brenda and Jessica for just really coming and sharing with us. And it's just so great to see you all in the room. Thank you so much. And I hope that you all take good care. Check out Access RJ and the Plant Seed Pills website to sort of educate yourselves about what is happening with abortion infrastructure and the abortion landscape. And just everyone be really well.
Well, thank you very much, Angela, for this and for providing a really great service. I mean, this book is really essential, really places a spotlight on a very important movement. Brenda and Jessica, thank you so much for gracing our virtual halls. You are the equivalent of superheroes to us, so it means a great deal for you to be here as well. We have posted links in the chat of your Zoom dashboard with which you may purchase copies of Deep Care. We've also posted links for Access RJ, and come on down to City Lights when you can. You know, we are open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. We have a full selection of books about feminism, about women's history and women's rights, and also women's healthcare. So this is one of actually many books that we actually carry at the store. So come on down, visit us. We're open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., getting back to our pre-pandemic hours. Tonight's program has been made possible by support from the City Lights Foundation, continuing the legacy of our founder, the late Lawrence Ferlinghetti, through public events like this one, our publishing program, and all the educational outreach that we do, dedicated to sustaining a vibrant community of readers, writers, and independent thinkers. So long, everyone. Please take care. Hope to see you soon. Fight the good fight.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.